Sejam bem-vindos a mais um Shark Talks para assessores. Hoje a gente tem um Shark Talks muito especial. Meu nome é Thiago Guedes, eu estou aqui com Rob Knapp e a gente vai transmitir essa live em inglês. Posteriormente, a gente vai botar as legendas nela e vai ficar mais fácil para todo mundo. So, welcome, Rob Knapp. It's a pleasure to have you here. It's an honor to me. You are very important for my career, for our enterprise. So, it's very good to have you here. So let's start with some questions. How do you feel about the success of the book Supernova Advisors in other countries like Brazil?
How do I feel about the Supernova Advisor and how much it's being read in Brazil?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to XP conference and I asked them how they found me, and they said, "Oh, Mr. Knapp or Mr. Rob, you are very famous in Brazil." And I said, "I'm not famous in Carmel, Indiana. How do you know me?" And they said, just a lot of people read the book, which is very flattering.
Yeah, it helped us a lot. And now we have two new books, the Supernova Multiplier and the Supernova Teams. What makes you have these other books 10 years after Supernova Advisors?
Yeah, it came from the fact that when I wrote the Supernova Advisor, it was sort of the story of how Supernova started. But I coached then for the next 10 years. I retired in 2006. I started Supernova Consulting in 2007, published the book in 2007, and then started. So in 2017, I had been coaching for 10 years. And I think in 2017, 18, I published the book, Supernova Advisor. And it's really a story of people that had adopted Supernova as a best practice. So they had done the hard work of organizing themselves, segmenting their book, organizing themselves. And then what I was most interested in is what their success in growing their practice. Because somebody had told me, Rob Knapp's great at helping you get organized and he's great at helping you segment your book, but come to me. I can teach you more about growing your practice. And I thought, that's not fair, because once you build a good practice, you should be able to grow it because you've got a good base to work from. And so I took the 7 strategies for growing your practice and wrote several stories in some cases about each one of those strategies. So they're actually interviews with real people and they're real stories on how do you use, for example, mastermind group, or how do you use centers of influence to grow your practice. And I thought that those interviews with actual words, they're the actual interviews, the people's words, the FA's words on how they did it would be much more effective than me just simply telling a story. So I think I think it's very effective because people don't often, they don't always believe me, but if they hear it from a financial advisor, it has much more credibility.
Yes, I love these books. So let's start with, what's the skills you think an advisor needs to be successful?
General skills? Well, there's a couple things. There's something called talent. Talent, you can't create talent. There's certain people that are much more talented than others. But I've seen people with great talent get beat by people with less talent, but work harder and work smarter. So I would say that it's the same thing as being successful, whether you want to be an actor or a professional athlete or a financial advisor. It takes tremendous amount of consistent work. I have one guy that I'm working with right now. He's a student, and he's a very successful student, and he's going to be a very successful financial advisor. He's a sophomore in college right now, but he's part of my charity, Supernova Scholars. And I asked him why he was so successful, and it seemed like everything, because he was first violin, he was summa cum laude, he was, a top pitcher for the baseball team. How do you do all this? He says, I just try and become 1% better every day.
Yes,
So,
that's very important.
Yeah.
So when you think about someone starting their career, what's the best way to get more clients?
By building a practice that you're proud of. Once you go through training, do you remember going through training, and when you finished training, you were so confident, you thought you could conquer the world? That's the same thing as when you get your certified financial planning degree, or you go through Supernova coaching, and you learn to really organize your practice properly, and you segment it, and then you build a strong acquisition strategy. It's called confidence. And one of the things that I found interesting is that people that would go through Supernova build their practice on 12-4-2, 12 contacts a year, 4 in person, 2 of them, four reviews of the plan, 2 of them in person. When they use that 12-4-2 model, they build a financial plan, and then they do rapid response to problems, 1-hour response, 24-hour resolution. When they did those things, then they had confidence. And confidence is the key. If you're, the player, I've been watching the Wimbledon, and it seems like the player with the most confidence ends up winning. Patience and confidence. You just have to be ready and able to operate effectively as you can, but you can't push too hard. You have to wait till the right opportunity strikes.
That's what we see in Nadal and Djokovic this year.
Yeah, it's a very exciting tournament. Maybe one of the most exciting I've ever seen.
The last 2 games, they win in 5 sets.
Yeah.
So we talk something about the Supernova way now. So why is the niche and the centers of influence so important for an advisor? You said this a lot in the Supernova Multiplier and Supernova Advisor. How can an advisor leverage their work with this niche and center of influence?
Well, it's a good point. We use something called the 96-4-2-2-1 model for acquisition, and we think that each financial advisor should have 90 prospects, 6 centers of influence, 4 people in a mastermind group, 2 niches. So you mentioned niches. So if you had 6 good centers of influence, 1 each major, a center of influence is a person that has influence over others, and when they recommend you, the person usually takes their advice, right? And I always tell people, in order to have centers of influence, you need to be a center of influence. So you need to be a connector. So the idea is that if you give introductions and you have a source of professionals that you work with that are the best quality, then people will look to you for advice on everything. And when they do, they'll take your advice. And then you will be a center of influence, and therefore they see you as a friend and a person that can really help them. So it's the same thing, whether it's a CPA, an attorney, an estate planning attorney, a commercial realtor, a residential realtor. Those are all people that have the same ability that you do to give introductions as well as to receive introductions. So you can have the president of a university as a center of influence, and you would help them in different ways, right? You would raise money for them. You would, potentially give scholarships. You might even teach some of the kids, but you really can't refer business to them. I guess you could refer other people of money to them to give money, but the idea is that a CPA can give you a client, and in return, you can give them a client. So you're really handing them money in the end. You give them a client that generates $10,000 of revenues, that's handing them $10,000 every year. That's a very valuable thing. And you got to take that very seriously. We consider it, I used to think that you could just go ahead and get centers of influence. It'd be no problem. But it's not as easy as you think. I asked a guy, one of the guys I don't think he's in the book, but he was very big on centers of influence. He had a terrific center of influence that gave him most of his business. He was a CPA. I asked him, how long did it take you to get that center of influence? He said 20 years. I said, well, most of my clients don't have 20 years. So what can we do to speed it up? He said, you got to make friends with them. You got to become friends. So how long does it take you to build a friendship? Well, if you start with the people that you went to high school together, or you went to, college together, or you went to graduate school together, it's a lot easier to make friends than it is to just pick a stranger off the street. So try and find ways to affiliate through your university or other ways to build those friendships. The other thing is boards of directors. They become, even though we put them in a separate category from niches, they are in fact really a niche. And typically on every board, let's say and I recommend that you be on two boards, one charitable board and one arts organization. So let's say you're on the symphony board, and then you were on some board for cancer, for leukemia or something. Those people on that board would all have an interest in that subject, whether it be the symphony or leukemia. And they would typically be people that you would want to have as centers of influence. Meaning in most boards, there'll be a banker, there'll be an insurance agent, there'll be a CPA, an attorney, and so forth. And so it's really kind of a ready-made mastermind group for you around a niche, which is the symphony, because you all have an interest in that niche. Okay? So these things kind of bleed over into each other. We used to say you want to do seminars, it's better to have a ready-made audience to do seminars. Go to the Kiwanis Club and speak to them because it's a ready-made audience. Well, the same thing with the board of directors. It's a ready-made mastermind group. You don't have to build it. It's right there already. And you all have an interest in that subject. Now the question is, how do you make friends with those people? You build relationships. You find out what their interests are. If you both play tennis, you play tennis together, or you go to lunch, or you go play golf together. But you find something beyond your interest in the symphony in order to make your friendships. And then when you see them at the symphony board, you're already friends, and then they want to help you because friends help friends.
Okay, so that's a lot. You have to give a lot to make friends too, né?
Yeah, you gotta be a giver. That's right.
Yeah.
Adam Grant's book, Give and Take, is a brilliant book on that subject. I don't know if that came to mind when you said that, but you have to be a giver in order to be successful in the business of centers of influence.
Okay. So we are facing a financial market scenario where the clients are very anxious and worried with the drawdown of their investments. How can the advisors face it to keep the client in the right way?
Yeah, I had a call this afternoon with a group from Brazil on that very subject. With interest rates peaking, People are more interested in getting, a 10% return on their money rather than speculating in the stock market. So the competition in a high inflationary environment is tough. In 1980, 81, 82, we went through that exact same experience. And I was managing an office in Chicago. And I remember people were lined up outside the door to open up accounts to get 22% on money market funds. They were not interested in stocks, and they were not interested in bonds. At the time, the US government was issuing 14% zero coupon treasury notes. So I bought them for my children. They would last 20 years, and I kept them for that full 20 years. A guaranteed 14% is tough to beat. But at the same time, those people that diversified and had the vision to buy stocks did incredibly well. We had a 30-year bull market in the bond market, and we had a 30-year bull market in the stock market. And that was the beginning. And so for me, so how did we get them into the stock market? We didn't get them in immediately buying IBM or something. They bought utilities to start with, things that were high yield. You can get it, like I was telling them today, you can get Pioneer natural gas company has got an 8% yield, and it's selling at about 6 times earnings. So, that's in the US. You probably have similar things with your, with your oil companies. And my suggestion is try and get them something that has a nice high dividend, and just get them used to buying stocks and really try and get them into stocks. But don't give up because they don't want to buy bonds. They don't want to buy stocks. Buy bonds for them. Get the money in. Buy the money market funds. Get the money in. And then gradually, as interest rates come down, they will be looking for yield. And so by the 90s, we had all this money that we brought in the 80s that was all going back into stocks. And we had tons of money. That's why our average financial advisor had 640 clients, which was too many.
Yes. So you have a very practical view of what is an exceptional service. Can you tell us what's the components and the rituals that the Supernova Advisor does?
Okay, so the competence would be that they would have to be a good financial planner. Okay, so that's the skill, that's the competence, that's a surgery that you need to be able to do. So if you had a problem with your, and you needed a heart transplant, you'd go to the best surgeon. You wouldn't go to the person with the best service. But if they happen to have good service at the same time, that would be delightful, right? My brother had an operation, had prostate cancer, and his doctor was fabulous. And Rick referred everybody to him because he was such a nice guy. Bedside manner was unbelievable. So that's what you have to be good at what you do. You have to be good at financial planning. You have to understand asset allocation. You have to manage risk properly. But you can also be great at service. And great at service means you simply are a good listener. And that when you talk to your clients in these 12-4-2s, you ask them, what's on your mind? Before we get into the agenda for today, what's on your mind? Because they may be worried about something, or they just had a new grandchild and they want to tell you all about it. So the idea is that you are empathetic listener as well as competent in your own skills.
The 12-4-2, it's a process where you how it works.
Well, 12-4-2 came from our clients. We surveyed our clients and asked them what they wanted. This was 1994. So they want more now than they did then, but this is still our minimum level of service. So we asked them what they wanted, and they said, we want to be contacted every month. We want 4 reviews, and we want 2 of them in person. And so we said, we can do that, but we couldn't do it with 640 clients. So we had to bring it down to less than 100. And then we could actually deliver that. That's about 5 a day for a 20-day month. So that's 100 clients. And that's about the maximum you can have. You can have more, but then you've got to work nights and weekends, and most people don't want to do that. Okay.
So you have to work with the segmentation, the Supernova
you got to
way
segment.
of doing things.
I was talking about we're having a webinar on the 20th of July with a guy named John Cunningham out of Louisville, Kentucky. He works with UBS, and he's been a client of mine since 2014. And he's probably one of the finest financial advisors I've ever encountered in my 50 years in the business. And I'm going to be interviewing him and asking him about everything that he does, very much like you're interviewing me. And he's particularly efficient. Okay, he's a very efficient guy. So when he's set out initially to bring in $10 million new dollars a year. And then the next year it was 20, and the next year it was 30, and the next year it was 40, and the next year it was 50. So he's continued this process of increasing his goals every year. And somebody said, well, he must have too many clients then. I said, no, he's still got 100. He just brings in more assets, and he brings in bigger clients. And then he reassigns his smaller clients to other competent people, either on his team or outside of his team.
Okay. So let's talk something about the Supernova teams. Why do financial advisors need to be in a team? If I am a good advisor, why not be a lone wolf?
Well, you can be. There's a couple of issues. Teams never go on vacation. Teams never go to lunch. There's always somebody there. And teams never retire either. Just think about it, right? So as you get older in the business, people look at you and go, when are you going to retire? They're interested in succession planning. They may love you, but they love themselves more, and they worry more about themselves. So they worry that somehow if you retire, that they're going to have to find somebody new, or you're going to reassign them to somebody that they don't like. So they worry about that. If you have a team, the team is always there ready to answer questions. If it wasn't one person on the team, it's somebody else. Teams have leverage. Leverage properly used is excellent. Teams, on the negative side, teams can be a place to hide. If you're not very good at what you do, you get on a team and you hide. And usually you can exist there for quite a while before somebody notices that you're not doing anything. So that's the bad part of teams. A team needs to have great leadership. The most important thing on a team is leadership. We were talking about that today. Without the right trust and leadership, a team will way underperform. So, you've got to be willing, you've got to be a giving person, just like our give and take. You got to be a giver when you're a center of influence. You got to be willing to give a lot of introductions before you get any. Same thing is true. If you're going to be a good leader on a team, you have to first set a strong example. So you work harder, smarter, you get in early, you stay late, you set meetings, you're there first, you show up. That's the most important thing. We call it the bank of trust. You build trust over time by doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And if you are late, you're taking withdrawal from the bank of trust. If you're on time, it's a deposit in the bank of trust. If you don't do what you say you're going to do, it's a withdrawal from the bank of trust. And teams, like marriages, are built on trust and consistently doing what you say you're going to do over time. And with the right combination, teams can be fabulous. With the wrong combination, they're a disaster. So, and they usually break up. So you want to, in building a team, go through our book or other people's books on how to build your team. Don't just go and build a team. Read as much as you can, because you can, it's like marriage. It's a big deal. You have to go into it with your eyes wide open and pick people that you trust and that you like and you admire. And sometimes they're not, it's best if they're not exactly like you are. Teams that communicate well but have different styles are the best kind of teams.
Okay, so you answered the question I will ask after the question before. I will ask, if you were an advisor, what attributes would you look for to choose the best team to join? So you have to a good leadership, you have to trust everyone, you have to communicate very well. So transparency, so you can know what is going on. It's very important.
And other things are competence. You know, we talked about the surgeon. Well, I'd want to join a team where people are very competent people. They're smart and they knew what they were doing. They had great skills, and especially if they had skills that I didn't have. So there's an analogy that I used with, I don't know if you're familiar with Fargo, North Dakota, but it's a long way up, almost to Canada. And it's very cold in the winter. And it was one of my offices that I'd visit every year, and I'd go snowmobiling with them. And they asked me one time, when are we going to get more specialists visiting us from Minneapolis? I said, never. And they said, what do you mean? I said, this is Fargo, okay? I'm here, but I'm only here once a year, and I'm here because you guys are great and there's great snowmobiling. But don't expect those guys to ever come up here in the winter, okay? They're never coming. They go, wow, wait a minute. And I said, no, that's the reality. So you have to become what I call Fort Fargo. So each one of you needs to become a specialist in an area that you need specialization. So for example, you need a team in there that's specialist in 401ks, retirement plans. You're going to need a specialist in annuities. You're going to need a specialist in mortgages. You're going to need so I said, you guys all become specialists. Then when the specialist does visit every 2 years or whatever, they can bring you up to date and you can be the expert. But you're not going to need anybody but your own people. And that's the way a team should operate. A team should operate like Fort Fargo, with each member of the team being a specialist in an area that the team needs, so that everybody doesn't have to be a specialist. So one of the, we call the other part of organizing the team the 5-star model. So that would be a way of organizing according to product, but this is organizing according to responsibility. So each person takes on a responsibility, and ideally there'd be 5 people on a team. So you would have the director of planning, the director of implementation, the director of brand management, the director of marketing and sales, and the director of leadership. And each one of those is a big job and a big responsibility. If every client with Supernova gets a plan, then the director of the director of planning needs to really be good at planning, but keep track of the plans and make sure that everybody gets an update to their plan every 2 or 3 years, so that you're not getting stale and that the quality of the planning is second to none. Director of implementation's responsibility is to be in charge of everything that once the plan is created, then you've got to implement it. So that would be the investment process, the liability process, the risk management process. All those things are taken care of by the director of implementation. And they're also in charge of what we call the 24-month calendar. So rather than just guessing what we're going to talk about for the next 24 months with our 1242s, we have a schedule for that. And everybody has it, and everybody prepares for it a month in advance. The director of brand management is the Supernova operators, the ones that do the 1242, set up the schedule, handle the schedule, and handle operations and problem solving. And the director of marketing is in charge of growing the practice, helping to grow the practice, coordinating the effort to grow the practice. And the director of leadership is in charge of everything.
It's the CEO.
All the others plus those.
Okay, this is very important to us, because here in Brazil we see a lot of enterprise that is a bunch of advisors, and here in Apollo we like to have the directors in every I am the director of marketing now.
Yeah, because everybody on teams, you just have little, one financial advisor, another financial advisor, another financial, and they call themselves a team, but they don't do anything to leverage the team, or there's no specialization, there's no leverage. If you can become very good at something, somebody else doesn't have to be that good at it, and you've got the advantages of then being able to be good at lots of different things.
Okay, I'm happy because here in Apollo we are in the right way. So let's go moving on. What's the key drivers a financial advisor of a financial advisor business? What's the drivers of the financial advisor business?
What you mean? What drives an individual, or
the business, the financial advisor business? I think we talk a lot of here of the 5-star model. What we can see in the financial advisor business? What can you have to grow it?
Well, growing the business is a factor of time. If you dedicate time to it, you'll do a good job of growing it. The people that dedicate time to it all the time grow. The people that don't and do it as like a hobby and periodically try and grow, I call it the accordion effect. They'll work hard at growing their practice, and then they'll open a bunch of accounts, and then they'll go, oh, I gotta go grow it again. Then they grow it again, and then and it's just stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. The difference is if you're really good at this, you grow it all the time. It's a steady. You dedicate time to it every single day, every day. And that, I was talking about that interview I'm going to be doing on the 20th of July at 4:00 our time. It's very much that. It's growing the practice consistently over time. What he uses is a pipeline tool. And every Monday he meets with his assistant, his other financial advisor on the team. She used to be his assistant, and now she's, she has her own clients, but they meet together and they go through the pipeline. And that's all the money coming due and where every single prospect is all the way through until they come out the other end. And I will tell you, if you do that, you'll have success. If you don't, it'll be sporadic.
Okay. So I think one of the most important things in a business is to find the talents. So if you're starting a business now, what will you do to identify the best talent to work with you?
You mean hiring new financial advisors?
Yes.
Well, I'm doing part of that right now. I've got a Supernova Scholars is dedicated to improving diversity in the financial services industry. So right now we have 5 sophomores in college that are going through our Supernova training program. They've got internships with major firms. So they're spending the summer with major firms. I'm coaching them on Supernova. They are operating as a 5-star team with roles and responsibilities. They're simulating using clients. They're studying the market. They have their own portfolios. They're talking to their relatives 1242. So they're pretending to be financial advisors. And by the time they graduate and get hired by these firms, they're going to be superstars. So what we started with was tremendous talent. These are all athletes. I wanted really smart athletes because they're competitive. And so we went to Norfolk State, and Glenn Carrington was the dean there. I explained what we wanted to do. He said, I'd love to do this. I know I've got great talent here. So we got great talent. We started with great talent, and now we're training them. People say, well, I don't want to hire people out of college. I said, you'll never see these kids. You'll never get a chance to hire these kids because they'll be working for Google or Amazon or somebody else. They're never going to come into our industry. But if you catch them early and you train them up, then they will be very successful. So we're coaching the teams that they're going on, and they will join a team and be the financial planner for that team when they join them. So the probabilities of their success goes through the roof. Okay, I got about a 90% chance of them being successful in the business versus 5% if they just tried it on their own.
It's a very good probability. We have a question of our guest here, the CRC News. Thank you for being here. In a short time, what kind of signs can show us that a project is not going to work?
Wow. I went after like hiring, right? I wanted to hire a diverse group of people when this was in 2000 and let's say 5 or 2004. I was trying to hire diverse candidates for our industry, particularly black men, because we have a shortage of black men, and their failure rate is terrible. They fail 90% of the time. So I wanted to fix that. So I went about it at least 4 different attacks, rather than going after a problem with one attack, and with the knowledge that most of them won't work, right? But one might work. All right. So you can't just go after a problem with one attack. Sometimes you have to go after it with multiple attacks. And that's what I always did. And in this case, one of them was to do this Supernova Scholars Program, start with kids. And that's the one that's actually going to work. The rest of them, they didn't work. I went to the churches in Indianapolis, to the pastors. There's something called the 100 Black Men. I went to them. I couldn't find people. It was brutal, and I failed. But I'm going to succeed with this project with the Supernova Scholars. So you just have to never give up. You just have to figure out what will work.
Okay, so we are facing now a moment of we are growing our team, growing our branches, and I need to know, what can the team leaders and the branch managers do to keep the team on track and have successful expectations?
You got to create a vision of where you want to be, and as a leader, we talked about the leaders having set the example by working hard and by being trustworthy, but also you've got to create a vision of where you're going to be, a purpose of why you're doing this, a mission. What is it? Where are we going to be 5 years from now? That's our vision. Our purpose is what put us in the earth. If we weren't here, what would be missing? And our mission is kind of how we're going to get there. So you got to have that vision, and then you got to just be crazy about repeating it all the time, communicating that vision. Why are we doing this? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And this is going to be good for everyone. You're going to have a wonderful life, because of this hard work that you're doing. Don't give up. It does pay off. A lot of people, when they're in the middle of the storm, can't see the end. You as the leader can see the end. And so you got to encourage them to stay with it and try and work. And you've got to remind them, you got to, one of the things that I always had was the ranking of where our office was compared to all the other offices in the whole country. And then where are my top players ranked compared to other people? So I was a tennis player in college and high school and loved tennis and loved the competition. So I like a game. So I think sometimes if you can play a game that's not going to be damaging to anybody, but was sort of fun, then that keeps everybody focused on that, and they stop thinking about the pain they're going through. I think if you watched Wimbledon and you thought about the pain that these guys go through, they're not thinking about the pain. They're thinking about winning. But if you thought about the pain very long, you'd quit. So it's the same thing. You sprain your ankle, get up, keep playing. Pull a muscle, stomach muscle, keep playing. Those are the winners, right? You just it's not easy. These guys are killing themselves. So I think it's the same thing. I mean, many nights and weekends I spent working as a financial advisor until I was successful. I said, no one will work harder than me. I mean, I was a history and political science major. I planned on being a lawyer. And then I thought, that's not fun. Being a financial advisor looks like fun. That's exciting. It's more like sports. And so I liked it. But it was not easy. I remember 2 MBAs that were on either side of me when I started, and both of them failed. But I didn't fail. I was successful. I was committed. I worked hard. And so a lot of it's just your mental attitude. And as a leader, you got to have that same mental attitude. You have to love your people, and you have to believe in them, and you have to encourage them, and you have to keep pushing them, keep raising the bar, keep telling them how great they're going to be. You can't create Wimbledon champions, but you got to have talent. You got to start with talent. But once you get the talent, then you got to have a person that's willing to work hard. There's a lot of people with talent that don't work hard. So you got to have people that are willing to work hard, and then you paint the vision of what it's going to be like to stand there and holding up that Wimbledon trophy, right? Very cool.
Mr. Knapp, I'm very thankful for having you here today. So, final thoughts. What do you can say to Brazil? We have a lot of financial advisor here in this live, and everyone at Apollo Investimentos here. So we have another question here. Along your career, what was your biggest failure, and what it teaches you? It's a great final thought.
It's a really interesting question. I was a Navy pilot. I was a good student in college. I wasn't a great student. I didn't really understand why I wanted to be a great student. So I wasn't as motivated as I should have been. I was more interested in my tennis. And when I was in the Navy, I was a Navy pilot, and I was pretty excited about flying airplanes, but I didn't plan on making it a career. So I didn't do the best job I could have done. I wasn't the best of the best. But when I joined Merrill Lynch, I called my dad and I said, this is the last time I'm going to be mediocre. I'm going to be an admiral at Merrill Lynch. And I went to my boss and I said, what would be the equivalent of being an admiral here? And he said, it'd be a regional director. I said, okay, I'll be a regional director. So I spent 7 years as a financial advisor and was first quintile and did it. I worked hard. I gave it everything I had. And then I went into management and I ran the biggest district in the United States, the Midwest district, for 10 years. So, and I did it right on schedule, by the way. Every year I knew exactly where I was supposed to be and I was right there. So I guess the biggest failure was not seeing the opportunities I had in college and in the Navy. And I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because I'd still be in the Navy probably. So I really enjoyed the fact that I had a chance to be in our industry. And I would like to say Brazil is a young country, and the people I've met in the financial services industry are so young and so full of energy. Do not get discouraged. You're planting a lot of seeds. So think of yourselves as farmers that are planting lots and lots and lots of seeds. And over time, all those seeds will grow. Just think about 30 years from now. If you plant all those seeds and build all those relationships and build all those centers of influence and are on all those boards, all those things will come true and will all bear fruit. You just have to stay with it and work, and don't be mediocre. Don't be like I was, average in the beginning. Be exceptional, because it's not that much harder to be exceptional.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knapp. It was a pleasure to us to have you here.
Well, thank you. And let me just say you're all welcome to join any of my webinars that we have from the States. We appreciate it. And I'll let Thiago know when they are, and maybe we can pass that on to the audience.
Okay, so let's get in Supernova Consulting. The website, it's very easy to access and know, supernovaconsulting.com, and you can join the Rob Knapp lessons. Okay,
that's right, the Rob Knapp team.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Thiago, thank you very much. I appreciate the interview. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye. Então, se você está assistindo essa live e gostou dela, você entendeu um pouco do que ele falou aí de uma empresa de financial advisor que é dividida por diretores, que tem toda uma organização, um processo e uma forma de trabalhar, e você quer achar uma empresa para trabalhar assim, aqui na Apollo a gente estudou bastante o modelo do Rob Knapp, o Supernova Advisor, e a gente usa muito das técnicas deles, muito dos processos que eles usam para atingir o melhor para o seu cliente. Então aqui a gente procura ser a melhor empresa de investimentos. Antes de ser a maior, a gente quer ser a melhor, e um dia a gente chega lá para ser a maior. Beleza? Fico felizão aí de que vocês participaram dessa live. Até a próxima e entrem em contato. Entre em apolloinvestimentos.com.br/vencerapollo e vem trocar uma ideia com a gente, beleza? Valeu, pessoal. Grande abraço.